Commissioner Breitigam?
Here.
Commissioner Beckles is absent. Commissioner Bowie?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Kimwin?
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Here.
Commissioner Solorio?
Here.
Vice Chair Tuha-Win?
Here.
And Chair Kleinstein. Chair
Here.
Kleinstein.
Some work, some don't. I'll try to speak loudly. We start with oral communications. I don't have any pink cards, so we'll move on to the reorganization of the Housing Authority. We need to select a chair and vice chair. Do I have any nominations or anyone that would be interested in chairing or vice chairing this commission?
I would like to volunteer for the chair.
I'm sorry, okay.
I would like to volunteer for vice chair.
So we have a nomination for chair, Councilman Bowie and Councilwoman Kim Wen for vice chair. Can we vote on
We need a
that
motion.
simultaneously, or?
We can vote on it at once.
Okay,
Yeah.
we had a,
So moved.
I will second that. Call the vote, please. Thank you.
We'll need a voice vote. Housing Authority member Solorio does not have access.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Breitigam?
Yes.
Commissioner Beckles? Sorry, Commissioner Bowie?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Kimwin?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Yes.
Commissioner Solorio?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuha-Win?
Yes.
And Commissioner Kloppenstein?
Yes.
That is 8 yes votes.
Higher man.
8 yes votes for Commissioner Bowie to be selected as chair and Commissioner Kim Wen to be selected as vice chair.
Very good. Well, I've enjoyed my time as chair, and I pass the baton to you, Councilman Bowie.
Thank you, Commissioner Stephanie Goldstein. So we now open the oral communication. Anyone who would like to address the commission? Having known, I now would like to open the consent item. We have 3 items on the agenda: receive and file the Housing Authority status report, receive and file the Housing Authority status report again for December 2018, and again receive and file the minute from the meeting held on November 27, 2018. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anyone would like to talk about this? If not, I would like to call for the vote.
Commissioner Breitigam?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Kim Wen?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Yes.
Commissioner Solorio?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuha-Win?
Yes.
Commissioner Kloppenstein?
Yes.
And Chair Bowie?
Yes.
Motion received, 8 yes votes.
Matter from the chair and the and commissioner and director, anyone who would like to speak? I would like to ask Mr. Danny Huang about the government shutdown and the effect it will be for the Section 8 recipients.
For January, we did receive funds for January. According to HUD, funds will be available for February. However, funds will not be available in March.
So starting from March 1st, tenant will not receive the stipends to pay for the rent, or starting in April,
Starting in March 1st.
March 1st. How much household are we talking about that will be severely affected? Will be part of it, or all of the recipient in the Section 8 will be affected by it?
Will be most of them, probably all of them. Right now, we're assisting approximately 2,600 families, and the expense is roughly $2.6 million.
What kind of impact do you think would be on their status? Would they be facing eviction, or how do we plan to deal with? Have you any thought on that?
I think the impact will be a major impact if come March and we do not have the funds to support the owners. One strong selling point for the program is something that we're proud of is trust between us and the owners. Is that when economics up or down, we'll be there to their check will be there for them every month. Now, if it comes ever the time that we don't meet our obligations, that may affect our future relationship with them. But at this time, it is a very unusual situation. We are hoping that the shutdown will end long before then. But I imagine in a couple weeks, if it continues, then myself and City Manager, Mr. Stiles, and we'll have a discussion on what to do next.
Sure, thank you. And let's just hope that, there will be a breakthrough with the government shutdown, and so that it doesn't impact the recipient of Section 8. But could you please think on the, contingency plan in the event that it may, get past February, then what actions we take? Because I'm afraid if certainly, tens of thousands of people get evicted, it will be a major chaos for our city.
And Commissioner Bowie, if I could just add on to Danny's comments, he is in, I believe, close communication with the other 3 agencies in Orange County. Of course, the county provides Section 8 vouchers. The City of Anaheim, the City of Santa Ana, and the City of Garden Grove are the 4 agencies that issue Section 8 vouchers. So I know Danny and has been in contact with his colleagues in those other 3 agencies, and so we're obviously paying close attention to the situation, and we'll certainly, if there's been no movement, in 2 weeks at our next council meeting, we'll certainly be prepared to have some thoughts for the council at that time. But obviously, we're hoping that this is going to end sooner rather than later. But as a county, we're also giving thought to this as well. So, thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
George? And
Going back to what Commissioner Bowie was talking about, let's say that the shutdown goes past March, say into April, then it reopens the government. Will the funding be retroactive for March as well? Will we get that funding back?
We believe so, yes.
Okay, so, and then just reviewing some of those contracts with the housing, aren't there stipulations in place for just this kind of thing, that the owners agree that they won't evict Section 8 people if something like this happens? Isn't that part of the contract?
I do not believe so. It's a very unusual situation, so we really do not know how the owners will react. And yeah, we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
cool.
Just a very quick question. Sorry, my microphone is a little loud. So just say the shutdown going to be prolonged into March or so. Are we going to have any form of communications, perhaps to the owner, to the property owner, or that we kind of extended the rent or so?
We are planning, I imagine in a couple of weeks, once we have our discussions and decides on what to do, I imagine it's necessary to send out a letter to the owner to let them know what to be prepared for if the shutdown continues beyond March. So I imagine they will get a letter before that to explain.
Councilman Nguyen?
Thank you. I would like to make a point of clarification. I know that I had this conversation with the city manager. There's a lot of stipulations with Section 8 housing. Other programs will be more severely affected, but apartment complexes or the owners of the buildings cannot evict tenants because they're unable to pay due to the lack of funding from the federal government. They still have to pay their portion, but they will not be held accountable for the portion that is the federal government's money. So there's some things that we need to get clarification on and make sure that we do our research before we send people into extreme panic. So before we speak to that, I would like for staff to thoroughly research that, because I know for a fact that the complexes cannot evict Section 8 housing individuals because they're only responsible for the portion of the money that they contribute. If the shutdown continues on, we need to communicate that with everyone and make sure that we verify that fact first.
Yeah, I don't want to have panic amongst people, and the sky is falling when it's really not that big of an issue. If it isn't, and that's kind of the things I was perusing, alluded exactly to what Commissioner Nguyen has said. They can't evict, they can't, and I think some of the housing is in the same realm, not just apartments. So, we might want to look into that before we declare the sky is falling and panic people.
Yeah, it's clarification. It's against the law for them to hold them accountable for the part that is the federal government, and but other housing programs don't follow that. So those who are receiving assistance from the federal government for other types of housing programs could be evicted. So this is particular to Section 8.
Mr. Huang, can you clarify on that? Because I think we need to, there's a lot of players that get affected by it. Well, the most would be the tenants, right? The tenant who reside there. And then we have the owner who owe the bank money. So now they get only some portion of their pay. They might not be able to pay back the bank. Some of the bigger landlords who own a lot and who have a lot of reserve cash, they can survive, but the smaller one may not. And if the bank if it prolongs and the bank start to reprocess their property, then certainly it will impact a lot of people. So I think we need to start thinking ahead and plan for contingency. It doesn't mean that they will be evicted, but we need to have contingency plans so that the city can deal with it. One of the possibility would be if we talk to other agencies who have more fund to help the Government Housing Authority to meet those obligations. And the city, I don't know if we have money to help out in the short term, but maybe help out in a month or two, so that I'm sure by then the government have to be reopened, because I cannot imagine it go on for month after month. So something to think about, and then come back to us at the next council meeting on the status, and hopefully by then the situation was resolved and we don't have to deal with it. Any more question or comment? So if there's no more concern from the chair, commissioner, or director, then I would like to adjourn the Housing Authority meeting to the next meeting on Tuesday, February 26, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. I'm passing back to the City Council.
We already did roll call before, but can I ask Maria Syke to lead us in an invocation, and then Mayor Pro Tem Klopfenstein to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please stand and prepare yourselves according to your faith. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here this evening to consider the issues of our community, we ask for your presence in these proceedings. May your hand guide the decisions made here tonight for the benefit of all. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, takes us on to presentations. We actually do have a couple presentations tonight, starting with 1A, which is a community spotlight in recognition of the exchange student ambassadors from Garden Grove's sister city, Anyang, Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, the Garden Grove City Council is pleased to recognize 10 high school students and 4 chaperones representing Anyang, Republic of Korea, as part of the 30th Annual Sister City Exchange Program. When I call your names, please come forward to receive your honorary citizenship certificate. Kwan Gu Huen, Park Hee Jung, Soon Yu Ji, Lee Suk Won, Ka Ang Min Ju, Kim Yi Cha An, M. Hoi Jung, Chen Young Un, Bak Min Ho, Oh Woon Soo, Chon Si Yoon, Jung Soon Ha, Jung In Hui. Not sure I got that. Chi Mi So. For many years, the Sister City Association of Garden Grove has deepened the city's appreciation of and ties with Republic of Korea. Through the Sister City Exchange Program, Anyang's youth have a unique opportunity to learn about the American culture firsthand. They see Southern California's beautiful sights, but more importantly, experience its warm hospitality. The students, along with the chaperones, are serving as Anyang's Goodwill ambassadors during their 10-day stay. During their visit, they will be staying with local host families who have graciously opened their home and hearts to host the students and chaperones. Our city warmly welcomes you to Garden Grove, and we hope your trip will be very memorable.
Straight in. Maybe like 2 lines. Just right.
You take one for me?
Shift over this way more. You're over here.
There you go. Yeah, look at you. Very good. I know. She's gonna pass you up pretty soon. Steve.
Right here. 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2, and 3. And then go over here.
Thank you. You ready for Disneyland? He was.
Do you want to say something? Hello, I'm Kwon Gu-hyun from Anyang City. Actually, I prepared for many words, but now I'm panicked.
It's okay. It's all good.
But in short, I'm very impressed during the period. We, including us, we 10 students experienced many meaningful experience. So thank you very much, and I will look forward to the day when the students of Garden Grove City visit to
Anya, in April. Thank you. And we prepared the gift for mayor and the council and the city manager. So.
Should we each go down and yeah, let's go one at a time. So let's go that way. Go one at a time.
It's always a big thing. Very formal.
We move on to 1B, which is another presentation, community survey for the Parks, Recreation, and Facilities Master Plan, as presented by the Community Services Department.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. This evening, staff would like to provide you with information on the Parks, Recreation, and Facilities Master Plan. Richard Fisher Associates is preparing a 15-year master plan that will set the framework for decision makers in the planning, maintenance, and development and/or rehabilitation of parks and facilities. The plan will include a needs assessment of 15 parks and 8 facilities, recommendations for ADA improvements, and the preparation of 3 conceptual design plans with 1 preferred conceptual of Civic Center Park. The project is phased out in 5 phases. There is a data gathering and evaluation phase, which is already completed. We are at phase 2, community input process, which is the one that we're currently in progress with. Phase 3, comprehensive plan recommendations. Phase 4, fiscal analysis. Phase 5, an action plan development, and then the completion of the master plan. Phase 2, community input process. There has been interviews with City Council, City Manager, Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission, and key city staff. Most of those have already been completed. There's also a community web-based survey, which we're currently have online. It began on December 6, 2018, and it will be available through February 8th, 2019. The survey is available in 4 different languages: English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Korean. It's mobile friendly and can be completed through a personal cell phone. We also have workstations available at some of our sites, including City Hall, Senior Center, the Garden Grove Sports and Recreation Center, and Magnolia Park and Buena Clinton Family Resource Centers. As of this past Sunday, we have received 633 responses to the online survey. Our goal by February 8th is to have over 1,000 responses. The community meetings are also scheduled, both for Saturday, February 9th at 11 a.m. That will be held at Bell Intermediate School, and then Thursday, February 21st at 6 p.m. here at the Community Meeting Center. We will also have translators available at those meetings to be able to help translate in Korean, Vietnamese, and Spanish. The following are some of our marketing strategies of what we're doing to make sure that we reach out to as many residents as we can. We've created a web page and social media sites. We've added the information to our recreation brochure and actually the cover of it. We've had press releases. We've done program sites and libraries. We've emailed it to all of city employees. We've done postcards and flyers. We've added it to the January and February utility bill. We have a PSA that was just released today. We have park banners at all of our city parks. And we've also had announcements to our city commission as well as today at city council meeting. And we reached out to the school district to have them added to their Peach Jar account as well as through their social media sites. And also to all of our local nonprofit groups and neighborhood associations. So staff has made a great effort to market the online survey and also now focusing on the community meetings. These are two of our examples of how we've used our slogan, which is "Let's Talk Parks, Share Your Thoughts." It's catchy and we think it helps market the survey. We've added it to the front cover of our brochure, and we've also created the web page that's available on the city's main page.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Like Janet mentioned, there was additional phases to our Parks and Facilities Master Plan. Phase 3 will be a comprehensive recommendation for the plan. The plan will include itemized recommendations for potential development and renovations at parks and facilities in a priority order. This list will help staff and city officials in prioritizing future capital projects. Phase 4 will be a fiscal analysis. In order to address the needs on the recommendation list, the consultant will help us identify funding alternatives along with capital cost estimates and potential grant funding opportunities. Phase 5 will then be the action plan development. This phase will develop an action plan for implementation of the master plan's recommendations. This plan could include further design efforts for specific amenities to contracting grant program efforts, which is why we hope we could take advantage of Prop 68 grant opening up this spring. To conclude the master plan, we were going to have a submittal and approval process of which once the draft document is completed, our consultants will present it to the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission at our May 20th meeting. And then a final document will be presented to City Council for final adoption at the May 28th council meeting. Following the adoption, the Parks and Facilities Master Plan, like Janet mentioned earlier, we'll be sharing with Council 3 conceptual designs for the Civic Center Park redesign. These conceptual designs will be shared with the public for community input as well at a community meeting at a date to still be determined. In conclusion, we want to share a PSA that was created by our award-winning GGTV3 that will soon be shared on social media to encourage participation on the survey and community meetings. So this is the PSA, and please bear with me on some of the sound because we were having issues a little earlier.
How can I bring new fun and excitement to city parks that everyone will love?
What will my legacy be? What can I create for people to enjoy for years to come?
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Try to turn down the sound.
How can I bring new fun and excitement to city parks that everyone will love?
What will my legacy be? What can I create for people to enjoy for years to come?
Garden Grove residents have an opportunity to shape the future of parks and recreation in the city.
The parks in Garden Grove have been awesome growing up here. Any excuse to get out and be in the daytime and experience a little bit of nature.
People love local parks. Now, with upcoming opportunities to apply for Proposition 68 grant funding, you can share your ideas and help decide how our parks will evolve. Tell us your vision of the future of fun. Then tell your grandkids how you renewed and revitalized Garden Grove parks.
Parks make life better.
Parks make life better.
Parks make life better!
To take the survey, visit ggcity.org/parksurvey and join us Saturday, February 9th, 11 a.m. at Bell Intermediate, or Thursday, February 21st, 6 p.m. at the Garden Grove Community Meeting Center. Let's talk parks. Share your thoughts.
Great, so this concludes our presentation. We are open to have any questions.
Very nice,
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much for the presentation. We will now move on to oral communications. They have a handful of cards. Please come up to the mic when your name is called and address the council. Starting with Leland Sist.
Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. First, let me start this by saying I'm not an attorney, never been to law school, never taken a legal course, but I have watched pretty much every episode of Perry Mason and Andy of Mayberry, so I got that going for me. But I want to point out one thing, that at the last council meeting I addressed charities and how every one of them had to be registered with the state of California, the Attorney General's office. At the end of that meeting, Councilman Bowie asked the city attorney if that was in fact true. And correct me if I'm wrong, city attorney said no, that some charities could be registered with Secretary of State. So, being the smart person I am, I called the Attorney General's office and I spoke to someone in the charity section. And they said that is absolutely not true. Every charity in this state must register with the Attorney General's office charity section. Now, if you're a corporation and you engage in fundraising activities, but you yourself are not a charity, if you're fundraising on behalf of somebody else, you may or may not have to register with the Secretary of State, but that's got nothing to do with the Attorney General's office. They couldn't care less. As a charity, you must register. And that's what bothers me on that spreadsheet I handed out to everyone. I had someone in here tell me that, well, one of those groups is actually registered, you just got the name spelled wrong. I didn't have it spelled wrong. They obviously spelled it wrong in their letterhead because I got the information about the name of the charity from the information that the city gave me. So it's wrong. All I did was look it up on the Attorney General's website. I still say that the city is too broke. We're bad at managing money. And for further proof of that, you look at tonight, we're about to spend $11,642 for a 5K run. But we don't have any money for our paramedics and firemen. I find that disgusting. So again, if the city attorney, if I'm wrong, I know you don't work for me, you provide information for the city council and for the staff. If I'm wrong, please tell me. Please show me that citation, legal citation, where it says that the charities don't have to register with the Attorney General. I got my citation, that's California Governmental Code Section 12585 and 12586. Feel free to look it up. Feel free to call the charity's office. They will take your call. They will call you back. They'll fill you in on all the details. They taught me something. So I just thought I'd pass the information along. I thank you very kindly for your time.
Thank you. Tom River.
I'll wait until the packets are passed out, because I need all my 5 minutes. Are they all passed out? Okay. Hi, I'm Tom Raber. I'm here talking about Resolution 3154-66 and Traffic Resolution 2075-62, Section 500, 875.5 and 54. Let's take our time and go back to 1964 and 65. I was in kindergarten. But at Valley View and Tiffany, they were building brand new homes for 2 years, McDonnell Douglas was using Tiffany and Bailey as their own private employee parking lot. So the gracious Garden Grove Council, May 3rd, 1966, the resolution I just said before, I forgot to tell you, but from now on I'm going to call it the speed limit signs, was signed, approved, and adopted with the time set as 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m., 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. except for Saturdays and Sundays. In layman's term, from Valley View down to Tiffany, down to Tunstall, both sides of the road. From Tiffany to Acacia, both sides of the street. So, that was done, and the owner at 12782 Bailey Street, the famous house that's being built right now, which is on sale for $950,000 if you're interested, that gentleman got a petition signed on September 26, 1967, to move Bailey from Tiffany to his northern property line. So on Bailey, it's the 4 houses on the west side of Bailey and the professional building on the east side, which address is 12777 Valley View. In front of you, you have a legal document that 14 residents signed, 4 on Bailey, 8 on Tiffany, 1 on St. Mark, and 1 in Tunstall. We are asking, starting tomorrow, Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019, that the Garden Grove Police Department start enforcing it. They stopped in the mid-'80s, and they have not enforced it since then. The signs are still there from '66, or they've been redone since '66, but they're still there. Also, we're asking for each of the homeowners to get 2 placards so they can park in front of their own home. They should not be hindered because that area is still being used as a park and ride. On January 15th, the same email I sent out January 2nd that nobody replied to, and I'm not here to embarrass anybody, but I did send it to Officer Ashby, City Mayor, and to Sean Park, and nobody returned it. So I sent another email, the exact email I forwarded. I added 2 high-ranking police officers and Councilman George over here. Of everybody that received it, I only got 1 reply, and that was from Lieutenant El Farah, who stated on the email, "I'm your contact." I drove to City Hall to talk to Sean Park about the RV parking. There's no such thing as, nobody on Tiffany said that they used their water bill for it. So, City Hall would not talk to me. They told me to go across the street, which I did. Went to see El Farah. Nobody can find him, and I'm in the police station. So, they told me to leave. I said, no, I'll wait here. I have nothing else to do today. So, they contacted Officer Ashby. I drove over to Officer Ashby's office, and believe it or not, less than 5 minutes, I understood what happened. 5 minutes. 2 weeks of emails, 5 minutes of talking face to face. Behind a 6-foot wall on Tiffany, in the condos, believe it or not, the houses that are parallel with Tiffany have a 56XX address. How am I supposed to know this when that's a gated community? So while I was there, I was polite to Ashby, Officer Ashby. I told him I was going to come here today, that there was limited sign parking that was not being enforced. He said, don't embarrass us, don't embarrass the police department, you've already done that enough. So, I showed him on Google Earth. The signs are still there. I sent him the emails with the documentation that you guys received. So on the way home, I said, okay, I need to go ahead and figure out about this condo. PUD 10276. That condo in 76 was a dirt lot, a Across the street was a dirt lot. The residential across the street of that was a dirt lot, and Shakey's and Coco's was a dirt lot. PUD 102-76 was a big PUD. Part of the minutes of April 27th, 1976, Councilman Greger commented on the parking within the condominium development. Staff advised that there be no on-street parking, but provision has been made for the guest parking within the development. There's 103 condos, 103 double-car parking, there's 103 driveways, there's 93 open space parking. And believe it or not, those tenants are parking on Bailey and Tiffany. And Bailey and Tiffany is still being used as a park and ride. So my friends, my 14 friends on Tiffany and Valley View, we want the permanent parking for those 14 homes. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Ariana DeVaria.
She'll be speaking during our public hearing item along this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Gotcha. Okay, Tom Lee.
Hello, Council. Hello, everyone. I push high here, so don't know what to call. Must be a staff, according to a previous speaker. I'm an owner of 13031 Jefferson on District 1, I believe. The reason today for me to come up here is for the last year or so, there's a lot of homeless on the alley next to my house and behind fourplex facing Garden Grove. And there's some drug dealing on that alley to the house that have a lot of rehab people on Jefferson. So I thought I'd bring it to your attention. Maybe you can tell me what to do, or you can help me, or we can work each other out. And I can try to contact those owner of the fourplex, and we work together to try to clean up that alley, and then hopefully they don't come back. I've been calling the police several times, and I think a lot of people are out there calling the police for the homeless people try to stay on that alley. The address of those fourplex is 8402, 8412, 8422, and 8432 on Garden Grove Boulevard. The house that have a lot of rehab is address 13032 Jefferson's Street. I saw there's several more fourplex around that we have a lot of young adult or even children, and if they witness all that drug dealing or homeless, and they're just running bicycle back and forth between those areas, I think this is a great concern for children to grow up in that area. And I want to bring it to the council attention. Hopefully you point me to the right person to speak with, or maybe create a task force, try to either put out the action item that we can follow up and stuff like that. That's all I have for today. If you need picture or anything like that, I can try to provide it on the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and that concludes oral communications. We will go on to written communications. We do have one today from Sister City Association.
Item 3A is a written request from the Sister City Association of Garden Grove for co-sponsorship of the 6th Annual Strawberry Stomp 5K, and Ms. Pelayo is here to give the report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. The Sister City Association of Garden Grove is requesting City Council approval for co-sponsorship of the 6th Annual Strawberry Stomp 5K that will be held on Saturday, May 25th. The association is a local nonprofit organization that is in good standing with the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, and has been serving the Garden Grove community since 1989. They are currently working with the Secretary of State to come current with the state, as they are in the federal government. Each year, the association sends Garden Grove youth to our sister city, Anyang, South Korea, and also hosts their youth as part of their student exchange program. All proceeds from their fundraising efforts go directly towards sending students overseas and hosting the incoming exchange students. Co-sponsorship for their 6th annual Strawberry Stomp 5K will have an impact to the city's general fund. The cost to provide staff support from police, fire, and public works is approximately $12,642. The association has committed to reimburse the city a total amount of $1,000 towards the city cost. Therefore, the impact is reduced to an approximate amount of $11,642. The association is striving to make this event self-sufficient, and with continued success, they hope to contribute a larger amount each year until they are able to pay the full amount for city support. Staff recommends that the City Council consider the request from the Sister City Association of Garden Grove for co-sponsorship of their 6th annual Strawberry Stomp 5K. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Mayor?
Please, George.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, the number, can you read me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to clarify, the number 11,642, that includes the city staff time who would be getting paid anyway, basically, right? This isn't in addition to their salaries, correct?
Some of it is overtime cost.
Okay, so there's some overtime costs associated. Yes. All right. But I just wanted to kind of make that clear. We're not adding 11,000 total more to city
No,
budgetary.
Some of it is regular time and some of it is overtime.
Okay.
I don't have that breakdown here, but that's the way it is.
Thank you.
Kim?
I just want to address this because I know someone in the audience spoke to this, and this is a program, this is an association that works with the city to put this program forward. We saw the students here who got to benefit from that, and later in the year we will see our Garden Grove students who benefit from this program. This is something that's joint activity. It's a program that we've been sponsoring now for the last, this particular event has been 6 years, but the program itself has been 30 years long. This is one that I don't have a qualm in supporting because of that fact. It's our sister city relationship that we have and we have been building for 30 years. They have expressed that they are working in making themselves self-sufficient. They are providing more this year than they did last year. That to me is a step in the right direction. But again, this is also a city-initiated program, so I feel that this is something we should be sponsoring regardless.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Or a motion?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, thank you. We'll now recess City Council and go to other agencies. So we'll go to successor agency. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Member Bridegan?
Here.
Member O'Neill?
Here.
Member Tu-Ha Nguyen?
Here.
Member Klopfenstein?
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Vice Chair Bowie?
Here.
And Chair Jones?
Here. We already did oral communication simultaneously with City Council. Go on to consent items. We just have 2, receive and file the minutes and approval of the warrants. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Any matters from agency members? Seeing none, we will adjourn to sanitary district.
Okay, I'll open up under sanitary, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Our past chair was Councilman Beard, but we will go ahead and open up the sanitary district of the, Madam, please call the roll.
Member Bowie?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Here.
Member Klopfenstein?
Here.
Member Kim Nguyen?
Here.
Member Tu-Ha Nguyen?
Here.
Member Bridegan?
Here.
And Vice President O'Neill?
Here. So we already have done oral communications. Item 2, reorganization. We will need a chair and a vice chair. I'd be willing to chair if anybody would nominate me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And what about vice?
We want to do it both, and then,
I'll do vice. Nobody else wants to do it.
so I'll make a motion for Councilman Bridegan for vice chair.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote.
All right. Motion received, 7 yes votes.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Consent items, we do have one item, receive and file the minutes for the November 27th and December 11th meeting.
Move it.
Move.
Second.
I have a second. Call for the vote.
Mine won't work. I've hit it 5 times now.
There you go.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, any matters from any board members? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn to the next meeting, Tuesday, February 26th, and back to City Council.
Great, we will reconvene and go to consent items. Recommended that items 4A through 4E be acted on simultaneously, unless anyone would like to move, pull an item. Any polls? Or a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the vote.
Make this work.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Great. Takes us on to public hearings, item 5A.
Item 5A is introduction and first reading of an ordinance approving an amendment to Planned Unit Development, PUD 10382, revised 2018, to reconstruct an existing on-premise freeway-oriented static and digital sign, and that ordinance is entitled an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving Planned Unit Development Number PUD 10382 revised 2018, amending Planned Unit Development Number PUD 10382 to allow for reconstruction of an existing on-premise freeway-oriented digital sign for the Toyota Place automobile dealership on property located at 9444 Trask Avenue, Assessor's Parcel Number 098-09063. And there is a staff member, a consultant member here to give the report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Gina, for our consultant planner, will be presenting the item this evening. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. The request before you this evening is for consideration to amend the PUD to allow for the reconstruction and upgrade of an existing on-premise freeway-oriented digital sign for the Toyota Place automobile dealership. This is PUD 10382, revised in 2018. The subject site is located on the south side of Trask Avenue, west of Brookhurst Street, and is zoned PUD 103-82, which includes the Toyota Place and Garden Grove Nissan dealerships. The subject sign request does not include the Nissan dealership, and the sign is located on the Toyota Place site adjacent to the SR22 freeway. The properties to the north are residential, and to the east is the Hyundai Garden Grove. To the west is developed with a 2-story office building and restaurants, and the 22 freeway is to the south. The city approved PUD 103-82 in 1982 in order to approve a multi-tenant automobile sales and service facility. A freeway-oriented sign was included as part of the original approval, and since then, the PUD was amended to allow modifications to sign height, size, display, and design. The proposed amendment is to reconstruct and upgrade the existing sign and increase the digital display from 298.5 square feet to 477 square feet. As indicated in the table, the amendment will reduce the height of the sign by 10 feet, reduce the overall display by 142 square feet, increase the digital display by 178 square feet, improve the lighting technology, and remove other nearby dealerships' business identification from the sign. To facilitate facilitate the proposed sign, the development standards within the PUD will be modified to reduce the height of the sign from 65 feet to 55 feet to allow a maximum sign display of 688.75 square feet, which includes the digital display, Garden Grove identification sign, and Toyota Place business identification sign. Standards will also be amended to modify and limit light output at night to be between 5 and 15%. Additionally, the digital display will be limited to one display image at a single time between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., and requiring that images shall be maintained at 8-second intervals maximum. The face of the digital displays will be in line with the Garden Grove Freeway right-of-way, and Caltrans standards will be applicable to the digital sign display, and the applicant will be allowed to advertise community events, which will not exceed 10% of the advertising. Since the sign height, whoa!
It works.
Since the sign height and sign area are being reduced, and the new digital technology will automatically adjust the digital lighting intensity in response to ambient conditions, there will be a reduced impact to nearby residential properties and increased safety for vehicles traveling within the vicinity. Moreover, the reduction in number of displays on the sign will enhance the visual appeal of the sign, and the improved digital technology will create a safer, more sophisticated business sign for the automobile dealership. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council conduct a public hearing and to introduce and conduct the first reading of the ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving Plan Unit Development Number PUD 103-82, revised 2008, amending Plan Unit Development Number 103-82 to allow for reconstruction of an existing on-premise freeway-oriented digital sign for the Toyota Place automobile dealership on property located at 9444 Trask Avenue, APN 098090-63. Staff concludes the presentation and is available for questions. Thank you.
Any questions of staff at this time? Seeing none, oh.
I have it. I just want to yield to my colleagues and to have a few questions.
Keep in mind, this is a public hearing, so we're going to hear from a couple speakers from the public. Would you like to ask questions now or after? Generally, this is for clarification questions about the staff report.
Yes,
and then-
I just want to ask a couple of questions related to staff report. When you mentioned the automatic adjustment of the LED light, the new technology to the ambience conditions surrounding it, what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate it and educate us on that technology? For example, if during the summer the daylight is still going on much longer than in the winter. In the winter we usually get dark around 5 and really dark at around 6 or so. In the summer it doesn't get dark until maybe 8 and really dark until 8:30 or 9. So what does that mean when you refer to the new technology with LED lighting adjustment to the ambience surrounding it?
Mayor and members of the council, Councilman Bowie, if I may defer that to the applicant's representative. We have Rod Wilson with EMI. It is a sign company that actually, it's their technology, and they are fabricating the sign. If I may defer to him to provide some clarity of the technology and certainly respond to the level of detail that you're asking for in terms of the lighting output during those seasons.
Sure. And the other question that I have for staff, and if the attorney, toward the attorney, but if you feel that it probably better to ask after, then I just say it now, then you can determine when to answer it. So with respect to this particularly LED sign, which is a readable sign for on-premise advertising. So we are going to replace that with the share, reader board by multiple auto centers. Once we do this, because it is being shared, if the other dealership that might share it and did not want to participate at this time, if at a later time they change their mind and they say, wow, I would like to have some advertising reader board for our dealership, for example, Nissan would be a good auto dealership that fit this category, what would happen? Can we say that as part of this conditional use, if they waive their share of it, then they may not be able to have their own sign at the future? Because I want to find out if would it be better if they participate in this sign and share that, so that we do not have create more burden to other residents nearby.
Let me see if I can answer that question based on the original PUD. Number one, this is not a conditional use permit. This is a planned unit development approval, so this is a legislative act because the zoning code without the PUD allows for a freestanding sign for each of the parcels, because you're entitled to advertise whatever business you have on your parcel. The PUD provided for two types of signs. One is the individual pole signs containing the manufacturer's logo, Toyota, Hyundai, Chevrolet. And in addition to that, it allowed for one freestanding pole sign identifying the Garden Grove Auto Center, and it says may be permitted on the Auto Center property adjacent to and within 10 feet of the Garden Grove Freeway. Seems to me that what they're replacing is that center sign for the individual sign. And the original PUD continues to have that authority for the city to grant a permission to install a center-wide sign program. But from what we can see, the center-wide program signs are being taken down, and each dealer is putting up their own individual signs, which they have authority to do. The amendment on this PUD is because they want an electronic reader board. Our current municipal code and the PUD does not allow for reader boards. The copy changes with LED. That is not currently allowed. So in what you're doing by approving this PUD is to allow this type of sign on this particular parcel. Now, if they wanted to have reinstall a center identification with multiple dealers, they could do that. They would have to amend the PUD to allow for changeable copy. But as to the old types, internal illuminated, they already have that authority under the current PUD.
So by approving this, do we need to, does it still mean that they can have this sign if it is approved by the City Council tonight? And then they can still continue to have the share sign if they choose to do so? I'm not sure.
They can reapply for that, but they would have to apply for a new PUD in order to have the electronic copy.
So when we approve this, the permit for the share sign is going away. They cannot, unless they reapply for it.
Yes, for this particular sign on this property. But the PUD granted authority for a identification sign for the whole center anywhere along any of those parcels within the PUD zone. And I believe right now in that zone that you saw the map includes Nissan and Toyota. For this particular PUD, I think that there's another PUD that has similar language in the other properties going east.
Is there any criteria for the resident if they feel that having a couple reader board sign is not as much a burden on their life, but having, 3, 4, or 5 in close proximity might be something that is difficult for them to bear. What kind of discourse do they have, and what kind of discourse the city council have in order to, not assert too much of the burden on the resident that live close to it? We are talking about, and I'm not worried about the side that replaces another side, right? Because it's replacing the existing side, so I'm not too worried about it. What I'm worried about is now that we have Hyundai side, and then the Toyota Place dealership side, which is only about maybe 60 feet or 100 feet apart, and then in the near future, perhaps Nissan will come to the city council and ask for their own side. Then suddenly within that very short scratch of property, we have 3 sides. It doesn't affect other people further away, but I would imagine it would affect people who live very close to it, having 3 big sides. It's not as big as a billboard, probably 1/2 or a little bit less than the billboard, but it's still very big. And with the new technology, the LED emit a little bit less, and it can adjust with ambience surrounding it, but it's still very close together. And if you put 2 of them so close together, the overall light will be a little more than what it could be. So I'm trying to see, further down the road. If we approve 2 sides now, and then Nissan come aboard and said, hey, all 4 dealerships of along Trace already have one, I have to have one. So when I vote tonight, I want to see how my vote could, put the precedent on new side along Trace Avenue.
Well, this particular application only applies to that particular parcel. And if Nissan wanted to install their own sign, they would have to make their own application. Again, they can get a sign that's internally illuminated. They cannot get a sign with the changeable copy electronic LED. They need an amendment to the PUD in order to allow it on that Nissan parcel. And that's a legislative act, has to go through Planning Commission and then City Council. At the time that the application comes, part of the application material is to show that whatever sign they're putting up and the location, the intensity of the copy and the LEDs that they want to use, they're going to have to show that they are not causing any negative impacts on surrounding properties. And if they do show an impact, then under our environmental review, that's going to have to be disclosed, and it's going to change the type of environmental clearance that's going to be required in that. So there is a whole process in an application, in public hearings, in reviews, in studies that have to be submitted to show that there is no negative impacts to surrounding properties. I will tell you, having some experience in dealing with design issues in the planning world, when you do these studies, you have to take, when you talk about ambient light, you consider also the traffic on the freeway. And the light of the vehicles traveling usually create the ambient light that's going to be, a lot higher than, if you didn't have a freeway with, hundreds and thousands of cars going by day and night.
I'm asking you on the legality. I do not ask you to comment on the technicality, because as I understand that, but
the technicality affects the legality because it has to do with impacts.
Right.
And the impact is.
I can make the argument from the other direction that yes, lights from headlight from automobile, from car is a lot brighter. However, we are putting additional light above that. So even though if you turn off a lot of light from the cars, and then the headlight, the light from emitting from this side will not affect as much. But you're not shutting off the light of the automobile. You're adding additional light emission to it, and light combined, right? So that they add up.
So the short answer, let me just tell you the short answer. Short answer is that approving this sign does not force the city to approve a sign in the adjacent
Right,
property.
that's what I need to know, right? Because I want to know if I approve the Toyota Place sign tonight, do I have to, put myself, the horse before the cart, that I would limiting my ability to approve or not approve the sign should Nissan decide to do so.
Yeah, if Nissan submits an application, it has to sit on its own, and the city council, will have to receive the recommendation of the planning commission. So you have 7 commissioners reviewing that application, making a recommendation to the city council, and the city council making its own decision based on the information provided to it.
Okay. I have one more question, but if Councilman Kimberly Nguyen would like to ask, I would like to yield to her first.
I just wanted to add on to that. So I have a concern for that as well. If we do this now, likelihood is others may want to do it too. They will have to make an amendment to their PUD, go through the whole thing. Could we not also instill some sort of more stringent requirement where it has to be a particular distance away from one another, make it easier so it's not all one by, stacked together? We can spread them out the way that the billboards are a little bit more spread out. Or we could just say no, right?
So yes, you can say no. I mean, again, I want to say that they're entitled to a sign. They're not entitled to a LED sign. And to LED sign, you can say no.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes. Last comment plus question. I talked to Toyota Place earlier today. After some discussion with Mrs. Lisa Kim and Scott Stein. And I talked to them, and they relayed to me that they did offer Nissan the opportunity to share this LED, changing advertisement. And Nissan have, for now, have declined that that offer. If at a later time they would like to, have their own advertisement, can we, as a city, talk to them and say, look, the original intent was to have Toyota Place and Nissan share this LED advertising sign, and I think it would be better if you would continue to do that. And Toyota Place, the owner of Toyota Place, told us that the extent, the invitation is still there, and they would be flexible in extend that cooperation with Nissan if they would like to. Can we put that as something that some kind of language so that we can move forward approving this without, and the public know that Toyota have made the offer and continue to make that offer at least at this time?
That's, to me, it's a little complicated because you're creating a center sign as opposed to the individual sign that's being applied. There is in our code a requirement that comes from state law that if you substantially change the application and is different from what the planning commission reviewed and recommended on, then before you can actually vote on it, you have to send it back to planning commission for review and consideration as well. So I'm not sure whether that is substantial enough to warrant sending it back to planning commission. I think that it would, because it's a completely different sign. This is an on-premise sign is allowed by the code, and by adding, I think the PUD would allow a center identification sign, but I think you're changing the sign from an individual sign to a center identification sign when that's not part of the application. So my opinion is we can make that, we can add that language. I think it changes the type of sign that's being approved, and so it would have to go back to planning commission before you can actually take action on it.
Okay, thank you.
Question, so just to clarify for me, so Nissan opted out, and I'm assuming someone asked them at the time, do you have plans or do you want to do your own sign? And they probably said no, or do we know if they had a desire to do that, but they did opt out of of going in on the other sign, correct?
Nissan did opt out of this new sign. I can certainly defer to the applicant's representative if there's any follow-up discussions, but to date, we have not heard otherwise that there's a desire for a new sign on their property.
Perfect, that's what I was looking for, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing. We do have two cards, so Ariana DeVaria. Or Rod, if you want to go first. Rod Wilson.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. And I'm Rod Wilson, the owner of EMI, 9670 Trask Avenue, Garden Grove, representing the owner of Toyota Place, Norris Bishton, and General Manager Sam Chalin, who couldn't make it tonight. Norris and I actually worked originally on the sign in the 80s, and we worked on the sign again in the early 2000s. So I've got all the history you need on the sign. When we did do the sign in the 2000s, we increased the height up to 65 feet, where the sign currently is now. And the illustration that we supplied staff that you just saw on the screen was actually off a little. This is more of a true illustration of what the sign will be as far as showing that the height does go down from 65 feet to 55 feet. The overall square footage of the sign area itself does decrease, as your staff report mentions, by 142 square feet. It goes down. So the illustration on the screen was off, and we supplied something that doesn't give the representation like it should. So just know that. The existing sign LED screen is, and then we'll also get into the light question, but the existing sign LED display that's currently there, as you all know, this sign can remain as is. I mean, it can stay there. It's conforming to our permit, so this sign can stay there. What we're asking to do, since this LED screen is at the end of its life expectancy, we're asking to modernize the sign, and that's our request. To be able to update it to look more like the Toyota facility. The Toyota dealership is putting up all the capital to do this improvement, so they wouldn't be able to do the condition of saying someday can Nissan be on the sign, because someday Nissan might say, I'd love to be on the sign, but how much money is it going to be? And the Nissan has already at this time said, no, we don't want to participate. And to also answer the question, we did call Nissan and ask them, are you looking for buying your own freeway sign? And they said no. At this time, if they come in the future and they think they want to change their mind to buy their own freeway sign, that would be up to them, and then up to you guys to decide whether you'd want to approve that. To have them come back to Toyota, and I don't see that happening. The sign, of course, the new sign, as the new sign is illustrated, is going to now reach those 250,000 people per day on the freeway, which after reaching, by doing that and changing the old sign to this new sign, we're now going to capitalize on making an impact on those 250,000 people. And the way that works is usually when you have a sign like this, a new sign, you'll increase your reach to about 82% of the 250,000 people traveling the freeway. And what that does for you guys is it makes people buy a Toyota here rather than Toyota of Orange or Huntington Beach Toyota. The projected sales increase we're looking at is probably a 12 to 16% sales increase for Toyota sales by changing out the sign and giving them a sign they can read. Norris Bishton and Sam from Toyota state that they're looking at, on top of that, 12 to 16% increase because of the sign. They think they'll probably have an overall increase of 30% in 2019. So just know that's coming. That's quite an increase. So we're also giving the city of Garden Grove 10% public service messages equally divided throughout the hours of operation. When Ariana DeVario gets up from EMI, she will also clarify that when we got our approval at the Planning Commission, they did make a recommendation of one of the conditions to be changed for the hours of operation, and she'll mention that. As far as how the 10% works, and I want to have everyone hear this for the public service messages, we try to work with, we work with the city to establish one contact, one or two contacts that we can constantly call for your public service messages. We'll make all the graphics for you, we'll design the content, we'll send proofs back to that person, and if we do it that way, the city will use your messages. And we'll even send you proofs to approve. Every Monday, you'll get a weekly review, that person, to show the ads that you have running. And I think you'll see a big benefit from that. The sign will continue to conform to Caltrans, and it'll have no motion, no blinking, as the current sign does conform to Caltrans. The owner of Toyota Place, Norris Bishton and Sam, do agree with the conditions of approval, appreciate the staff recommending approval along with the Planning Commission. Ariana, who's coming up, is going to get into the specifics that I just mentioned about the hours of operation, and she'll cover the light. Again, Toyota Place does thank you for your recommendation of approval and all the staff's help. Thank you. Any questions for me?
Yeah, Rod, real quick, can you hold the visual, your board back up?
Yeah.
On the current sign, in addition to Toyota, the Nissan, Hyundai, and Chevrolet are also have their names on there. Do they have any rights to have their names on there, or is there going to be any objections, any pushback from the dealers that are having their names removed?
We got, knowing
some,
that.
but also the others.
Yeah, knowing that, we went to each of the dealers and got letters from them agreeing that it's okay to remove their names and they wouldn't participate in the capital expenditure of the new upgrade, and we gave those to the city staff.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Other
Rob?
questions?
Yes. So, just for clarification, because I'm not sure if I heard it correctly, this old sign will remain or will go away?
No, we reuse the structure of the old sign, and we strip off everything from here up, and then on the new sign, we reuse the pole covers, repaint.
And we put that in.
And we put that in.
Right, so the column is there, but it will be, on top of it, will be the new LED
Yes.
reader board. And how big is this? I'm sure it's a lot smaller than the original sign, but how is this sign compared to the Chevrolet or the Hyundai? How big is it? The same or smaller?
Same square footage.
Same square footage?
Yeah. So
Okay.
when we designed it staying in the same square footage, overall square
Okay.
footage, because we knew that question would come up.
Right. So it's not smaller nor bigger.
Yes.
It's very much consistent.
Yes.
In terms of dimension. In terms of height, it is much lower than the 65 feet high current sign.
Yes.
How is it compared to the Chevrolet? The reason I bring up Chevrolet is I'm very happy with the way you and Chevrolet put together that sign. You did listen to the community and be flexible to lower it. So I'd like to see how is this high compared to that one.
Well, what I did is after our neighborhood meeting, we had one person that showed up at the neighborhood meeting, and I went over to his house and at a cul-de-sac, and that's what determined the 55-foot reduction, because in the cul-de-sac, and I can't remember the name of the street right now, but what? Souza. So in Souza, in the cul-de-sac, what we did is we did a line of sight study, and I went there at night, took pictures, and we realized that at 55 feet, the light from where they're seeing it from their house goes away. So we did a similar as we did at Chevrolet.
I see. Okay, good. Last question for you.
Yeah.
During the winter, the daylight go down very, very fast. It's getting dark at around maybe, no later than 6 p.m. And right now you have the sign to dim to only about 10% or to 50% after 10 p.m. Is there a possibility that because during the evening when the light get dark and different in the summer and different in the winter. So in the summer you may not dimming it until maybe 10 p.m. But during the winters, there's no need to have that as bright as during the daylight. So is there a possibility that you can dim it maybe to 60 or 70% during the winter after 6 p.m. and then at 10 p.m. you reduce it further to 10, 15%?
I'm going to have, the answer is going to, you're going to like the answer. How's that?
Okay, good.
With the new technology. So I'm going to have Ariana DeVario of EMI also speak to that, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. Fabui, to speak to your question, the new technology of these displays works so well, which is why we need to upgrade this LED display, that we actually have an astronomical calendar and photocell that senses the ambient light. And it dims over sunset. So when the sun actually starts to set, whatever time that may be, irregardless, when the sun starts to set, the dimming slowly goes down over 45 minutes so that you don't see an abrupt change in light, but you actually dim down all the way to the nighttime dimming over sunset. So as soon as sunset is over, you are at that nighttime dimming.
I see. The Hyundai LED sign, which is erected sometime in 2012 or 2013, does that have that technology, or it does not quite at that level?
It's not
I
quite.
see.
We
That's
have to
probably
set-
why, because I live around the corner and I exit on that ramp quite often. I see at 7, it's still as bright as during the daytime.
We can look at that.
We can look into
That'll be a program that we could manually program versus this newer technology, but we'll look at that.
The newer technology is automatic, and the older we have to manually set the time clocks. So it's based on the actual time, whereas this new one is based on ambient light.
Okay, all right, that's all for me.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if I recall at the Planning Commission, you were discussing the LED technology and how it focuses directly at the road now. So there's virtually zero light bleed into the community as opposed to the old signs that kind of just shine, right?
That's correct.
So even if these things were on full blast, the only people that are going to actually be able to see them are the people on the freeway who are driving, correct?
Correct. So we're doing about, in addition to the dimming, we're doing about 3 other things. So one of those things is to V the displays towards the freeway. So you can see on the plan view here that Rod's pointing to, we angle out those LED displays so that they move towards the freeway, and then the back that you see over here, this faces the residents. So you're pulling those LEDs away from the residents and shining them towards the freeway, which is the point of the LED display. In addition to that, we use now narrow angle LEDs. So if you have a light cone, typically on old LEDs that's like this, we now pull them in like this. So it minimizes the light bleed horizontally. Lastly, we also have 1-inch louvers, which are essentially shelves. So think about a black shelf over the rows of LEDs. So those shelves then put the light down vertically. So you have the LEDs in between shelves and with narrow angle. So everything is being directed towards the freeway. That's correct.
Thank you.
It does help, but I just want to make sure that it's still a burden to the resident right behind it or close to it. From my house, I still being bothered by the Chevrolet, reader board and the Hyundai reader board. If I stand on the second floor, look at that, I can still be, affected by the bright light. However, having 1 or 2, I can get adjusted to it already, so it's not as much of the hardship. What I'm worried, and that's why I feel comfortable with supporting this project. But I'm more worried about, not for me, but for the folks that live so close to Nissan and Toyota. If now they suddenly have Hyundai, Toyota Place, and Nissan, I do not know how burden that would be on them if they have 3 of that big size right close to their property. And that's why I worried about what happened when Nissan come forward to the city. But I'm relieved that if that is an issue, we deal with that at that time when it comes. Right now, Toyota Place, there's no reason for us to not approving this, and so I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, and being the addition, this isn't an addition of a new sign. This is simply
Exactly.
replacing the old sign, and it's reducing the actual surface size, so the constituents over there should be happy because the sign is getting physically smaller.
Right.
And the lights being more directed at the target location, the freeway, so I think they'll be
Yeah.
happy with that.
Yeah.
I think it's replace and upgrade with the smarter technology.
Technology is great.
Okay.
And lastly, I'd want to make two comments. As Rod mentioned, we'll conform to all Caltrans regulations, and this will operate as an on-premise digital display. And we do accept all the conditions of approval except for number 3. So number 3 was amended at the Planning Commission, and that verbiage was written at the Planning Commission that the static image will hold between 12 a.m. midnight to 5 a.m. as opposed to 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So we would like that condition to be amended as it was at the Planning Commission.
And that is part of your staff report as a memorandum, I think, or?
Yes, the wording is there on the very last page. So the action on the draft minute excerpt from the Planning Commission, the new verbiage is that the digital display may not change copy between the hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. in order to reduce light and annoyance impacts to the adjacent residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the only cards I have. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Colleagues?
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Yeah, as far as the adjusted condition, with this new technology, I don't see the need to limit the businesses in Garden Grove, especially if it's focused on the highway for the vast majority of it. So I would also support amending that provision as well.
So we're changing from 12 to 10 p.m.?
From 10 to 12.
From 10 to 12, okay.
I'll move it. Move approval with the amended motion provision.
Did you want to address that?
It's 5 a.m. to 12. 5
When
a.m.
you can change.
When you can change it, Craig.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Congratulations. Okay, going on to item 6. This is Commission Committee Matters 6A. As I already mentioned earlier, we've asked City Clerk to make a public announcement that we're going to leave the application period open for a few more weeks, and we're going to delay the appointment of commissioners to probably our next meeting.
Okay, so then the deadline will be February 6th for everyone, and we'll do a press release.
Great, thank you. Moving on to items for consideration, we have 4, 7A.
Item 7A is introduction and first reading of an ordinance amending and restating Chapter 848 of the Garden Grove Municipal Code pertaining to vending on the public right-of-way and regulating sidewalk vendors, and this is an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove amending and restating Chapter 848 of Title 8 of the Garden Grove Municipal Code pertaining to vending on the public right-of-way and regulating sidewalk vendors." And City Attorney Sandoval is here to give the report.
Mayor, members of the City Council, earlier this year, SB 946 became effective, and SB 946 basically prohibits the city from banning all sidewalk vendors. It does allow the city to enact limited regulations. The ordinance before you amends our municipal code to change our current prohibition for sidewalk vendors in order to comply with state law and implement the maximum amount of regulation that state law now allows. The new regulations of the municipal code will require sidewalk vendors to obtain a permit from the city. submit all the information that state law allows the city to collect from sidewalk vendors. For example, business license, if they're going to sell food, they need to obtain a health department permit as well. And also, the regulations have provisions requiring them to vend only on sidewalks, not on medians or other dangerous locations on the public right-of-way. And in addition to that, if they are going to vend in the sidewalk, they need to allow enough room for handicap access. So they can't block access to wheelchairs and individuals that need the area in order to use it as pedestrian use. So we're doing this because state law is requiring us to do this, and if you have any questions or want me to go into the specifics as to every single regulation we're implementing, I'll be happy to answer that and go over that as well.
I have a quick question. Mayor, is that?
Please.
Okay. If I have a constituent contact me and they have an issue with a particular sidewalk vendor and they feel that that vendor is violating some of these bullet points stated here, who would I, or how best would I address that issue?
So under our municipal code, both code enforcement officers and police officers can enforce the code. So they can call, I wouldn't dial 911, but, police department does have a non-emergency line that they can call, and they can report it.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, and I understand, because of what happened with the state, we kind of need to do this. But I do want to make it very clear in the minutes, we always read about the overzealous police officer who, the little girl selling Girl Scout cookies in her front yard, or selling lemonade, lemonade stand or something like that. And, I just want to make it clear, the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. For something like that, I would hate to see Garden Grove show up on, national headlines because some kid has got a lemonade stand in his front yard, so I just want to make that clear, and hopefully we'll get that put in the minutes.
Well, they can sell lemonade. They just need a health permit. They need a business license.
Oh, you're the worst.
I'm sure Sunny Wind from Seven Leaves is going to drive around and rat out all the Girl Scouts trying to sell lemonade.
I have one question for
Go ahead, John.
the attorney. So one thing in there, if it is a permitted vendor and he's in a residential area, he has to keep moving. He can't set up shop in front of your house or my house on the sidewalk, correct? He has to keep moving.
Yes, so in commercial and in parks, the law authorizes sidewalk vendors to have permanent locations unless the city has a concessions agreement with a concessionaire. But we can actually prohibit, we can prohibit non-roaming vendors in residential streets. In residential streets, they do have to keep moving so as to, to prevent them from just setting shop in one location and vending from just that one location.
Yeah. That's good, because we're going to have certain areas where that might be more beneficial to a vendor. Hey, I got this spot, but it happens to be right in front of somebody's house, so we don't want to see that happen. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments or a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Please call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, 7B. She did up front, I believe.
Yeah, up front.
I did. Item 7B is introduction and first reading of an ordinance adding Chapter 1860 to the municipal code, implementing a construction and demolition waste recycling program. And this ordinance is entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove, adding Chapter 1860 to Title 18 of the Garden Grove Municipal Code, implementing a construction and demolition waste recycling program. And City Attorney Sandoval is here to give the report.
So this is a second ordinance required by state law, and we actually have this program already in place because the state of California, when they adopted the 2013 California Green Code, included a 50% diversion requirement for construction and demolition debris and waste. That 50% was increased in the 2017 codes to 65%. So we are already implementing a 65% diversion requirement when you pull a building permit for a construction or a demolition project. What we don't have in our code is a separate municipal code provision that specifies how we're going to handle that diversion requirement. And so what this ordinance is doing is putting in our code so that it can be available online specific information as to the diversion requirement, the information that needs to be submitted to show that you met the diversion requirement, and it implements, the only new thing is that it clarifies a deposit requirement. We currently do have a deposit requirement in our fee schedule, but we have no provision in there specifying what happens to that deposit. How do you get it back? Whether if you don't meet the diversion requirement, do you get it back? And the answer is you wouldn't get it back if you don't meet the 65 diversion requirement. And then what happens to the money that's forfeited? And in this ordinance, we're proposing that any amounts forfeited are to be used either to pay for the diversion program or to provide educational information and educational programs leading to additional diversion programs. So that is what we're doing with this ordinance. If you try to review the uniform building codes, we adopt them by reference because we have to under Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations. But those are copyrighted, so you have to go to the library, you have to come to the counter. The city purchases a copy of Title 24. You can't get it online unless you pay for it. And so by doing this and putting it in our municipal code, it allows contractors, it allows property owners to know from our code, from our website, what the information is required in order to meet the diversion requirement that's currently required under the California Green Code. That's my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or go through every detail of the ordinance.
Thank you.
You can tell this thing gets me excited.
Yeah. Any questions or comments? Or a motion?
No, let me ask a question. People are saying that I asked too many questions, but just want to understand what I'm voting on.
Sure.
When you say building material, what does it mean? Does it mean everything from concrete to 2x4
Yes.
stakes, asphalt,
Yes.
Roofing material,
Yes.
carpet,
Yes.
cabinet, kitchen cabinet,
Yes.
everything?
Everything. And it's interesting
Kitchen sink.
because this has been in place, I mean, the California Green Code has been in place since 2013 or so, and there is now a whole industry that accepts construction and demolition waste. And they will actually repurpose it. You know, they'll make it into new wood. They'll make it into new, Councilmember O'Neill can tell us all the new materials are made with this recycled product.
And do they have to sort them, or they can just throw them into a bin and haul it to the recycle center?
So there's two ways. There's actually three ways that you can meet the requirements. Number one, you can contract with our hauler, and they will recycle for you. So, you know, just like you can rent those big bins, and you can just throw all your waste in there, and our hauler will recycle it. The second way is you can haul it to a recycling center, and the county has a list, and our building official will have a list as well of all the recycling centers in Orange County, Riverside County, where you can take the waste yourself. You just get a manifest, you know, how much waste you took there, and you use the manifest in order to show that you took it to a recycling center, and that's considered recycling. The third way is to actually show that you reused it in your project, or you reused it in a different project. You know, some woods you can reuse. I mean, there is material you can reuse in the project. So if you can show that you've done that, then you get credit.
So you do not need to sort them. You just need to haul them to a recycle center, because it's a sorting that really, labor intensive.
Yeah. Yeah, you can rent a lowboy and just throw everything in there, and then our contractor, our franchisee, will actually make sure it gets recycled.
And what is the amount of the deposit?
So the deposit is based on the type of project and the amount of construction. The lowest amount, there's currently on our books, there's two, and after this ordinance is passed, I'm going to talk to the building official to see if we implement different amounts, but right now there's two amounts, $500 and $1,000. You know, we can work on having different stages for, you know, maybe a smaller deposit for much smaller projects. But, you know, this is a deposit. This is money that you get back once you show that you recycle the material.
So if someone decided it's too much a hassle for them to recycle it and they didn't do it, then their deposit, whether $500 or $1,000, get, you know, they will not get it back.
Correct.
Do they get any penalty on top of that, or what happened?
So one of the penalties, you know, is that they would forfeit the deposit. That they could also, if it was intentional, you know, depending on the amount, we could take action against them for failure to recycle. But that is not part of the program at this time. The deposit, our experience in other jurisdictions, and Cal Recycle is really pushing this deposit program because apparently it does work. I think in construction you don't want to spend a penny more than you have to.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
7C.
7C is introduction and first reading of an ordinance increasing administrative fines for building and safety code violations and prohibiting commercial advertisements for unlawful activities and uses. The ordinance is entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove amending Section 12210 of Chapter 122 of Title I and adding Chapter 8.2 of Title 8 of the Garden Grove Municipal Code to enhance the city's code enforcement program by increasing administrative fines for violations of building and safety codes and prohibiting commercial advertisements for unlawful activities and uses. And Mr. Sandoval is here to give a report.
Third ordinance. It's city attorney's meeting today, right?
Totally.
And I'm working on another one because...
Your lucky day.
Many state laws are requiring us to amend our code to comply with many new mandates that the state of California has adopted. But in this one, we actually support it because it didn't go as far as we wanted. Currently, state law limits our fines and penalties to $1,000 dollar amount. And we have been imploring the state to amend that because that has been in place since the 60s. So initially this bill, there's actually two bills, but one of the bills was going to increase our ability to fine up to $2,500 per violation. But instead, they made it so that the increased fines only apply to building and safety codes. So we're amending our code to increase the fines and penalties for violations of building and safety codes. This would be the building code, the fire code, the mechanical code, the electrical code. So violations of those codes, the fines are being doubled. And so we're amending our code to implement the doubling of those fines for those violations. And since, in addition to that, when you have building code violations, you cannot get a citation up front. You have to get a notice of violation, and you have to get an opportunity to cure the problem. Normally, we give 7 to 30 days, depending on the type of building code violation. Unless there is an imminent threat to life or property, we have to give a reasonable time for the property owner to cure the violation. A separate bill authorizes the city to issue a citation up front if the building code violation is due to an illegal marijuana cultivation site. And so we're adding that provision to our code as well, basically authorizing our code enforcement officers to issue citations up front for illegal marijuana grows in the city. And since we were working on enhancing the city's code enforcement program by doing this, we also added a new section to the municipal code that prohibits the advertisement of illegal activities, which are defined as activities that violate the code, either land use or specific violations of the code. And that will assist our code enforcement officers in pursuing and citing for individuals who want to advertise illegal activities such as short-term rentals, marijuana dispensaries. We have had problems with cafes with, servers that are not fully closed, billiards or houses of chance where they have these gambling establishments.
Casinos.
So illegal casinos. So if they want to advertise that, they're going to be cited for advertising such illegal activities. So we're adding that to our code, and hopefully that will give us one more tool to go after illegal activity in the city. And that is my staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Mayor?
Church. Two quick questions. You say double the fines. What does that entail? From 1,000 to 2,000?
Well, so for infractions, the state law says that the first citation is $50 and 100, then it goes up to $250, and then 500. 500 for infractions is the top amount, and then you can go into misdemeanor no more than 1,000. So for building code violations, the fines are increasing to, I just lost the ordinance. The first violation is going to a fine $130, second $700, third $1,300, and then any violation after that is $2,500. So the cap is going from 1,000 to 2,500 at the high level.
Okay, and that would also include these like the Airbnb websites and that kind of stuff, because I know a couple weeks ago we had a lady come in, I think she was from Stephanie's district, who is actually being sued because she's reporting these establishments, shall we say. So would we have somebody who's like monitoring these websites, that kind of thing, or?
Yes, we have been enforcing that. I mean, I don't know if Scott wants to talk about a little bit more about that, but to answer your question directly, the increased fines are only for building code violations, not for the other violations, such as, zoning code violation, which is what the short-term rentals are doing. They're violating our zoning code, so not the building and construction code. So those violations are still, capped at 1,000. But if we catch them advertising, and obviously they have to advertise in order to be in business, then we'll tack another 1,000 violation for advertising. So
can you
in a way, we're increasing the fines to 2,000.
Could you tag them with another $1,000 fine each day that they leave it up?
Yes.
So
That's correct.
after a month, they're owing $30,000.
Yeah, and and it's easier said than done, because we play a cat and mouse game, because they do advertise, but they don't put their address. So we're working with.
Yeah, but we know who owns the property. I mean, we can find that out fairly easy, right?
Well, we find the advertising, but not the address, right?
But you're going to find the owner, not the advertiser, correct?
Gotta find out.
Yeah.
Well. So we do have a program, and we are, working really hard to catch these individuals, and we issue citations, and in fact, we're actually prosecuting one criminally because the citations were not working.
Thank you.
And just to tag on to the city attorney's comments, council members will remember, I think a couple weeks ago at the last council meeting, Ms. Kim talked about the consultant that they were hiring that was going to be working directly with our code enforcement officers to try and more closely identify problematic short-term rental properties to help us get at some of the violations that we're talking about. So we'll be coming back in the coming months, reporting back to you about how that program's working, how the consultant is helping us out. So, you know, more to come on that as the program just gets started.
You mentioned about illegal advertisement for unlawful activity or use. What exactly does that mean? For example, if during election, candidate put up their signs and banner, whether on the city owned property or on private property. Does that qualify for illegal, unlawful activity advertisement?
No.
So what does that mean?
City has not banned running for office yet.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So the prohibition, if you look at page 97, that's part of the ordinance. The prohibition specifically says, if you want to engage in any activity or use that is a violation of the code, you are prohibited from advertising that activity. So for example, casino, you want to run a casino, casinos are prohibited. You can't advertise that you're opening up a casino.
I see. So it's only for advertising activity or business that are banned by the city.
That are prohibited by the code, yes.
Okay. So for something like if they violate other city code, which is not banned, which activity is not banned, then they are not violating this code.
Correct.
That would be the way to interpret it. So in my question earlier, because running for office is not banned in the city, even though we have a city code require them or asking them to remove the sign within, how many days or weeks from, I think it's like 30 days from the election date. If they violate that code, it's a different kind of violation,
right.
not this kind of violation.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions, comments, or a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
7D.
Item 7D is award of contract to Clean Street for street sweeping and catch basin cleaning services, and Mr. Murray is here to give the report.
Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, City Council is being asked to award a contract to Clean Street to provide street sweeping and catch basin cleaning services. The city has a current street sweeping and catch basin cleaning contract that expires on January 31st of this year. This new contract will replace the old one and provide the same services, plus it will expand our catch basin cleaning to twice a year. Council should know that street sweeping is required by for the city to be in compliance with a lot of different environmental laws. The city issued a request for proposal and on January 2nd received 3 proposals. Those proposals were evaluated and we're looking for is to determine the most qualified candidate, and Clean Street was ranked the highest. The cost of the contract is just over $6.4 million for 7 years, which works out to a little bit over $917,000 per year. This cost does not include CPI adjustments, which are included or provided for in the contract. The CPI adjustments are limited to 4% per year, and they usually average 2 to 3%. The new contract is approximately $146,000 more per year than the existing contract. Please keep in mind the additional catch basin is an expansion of the scope, and that work is valued at about $57,000 a year. The funding for the new contract will require an adjustment in the current public works budget. And for the cost for the remaining years, that will be included and planned for in future budgets. Additionally, the State Department of Industrial Relations is currently reviewing the street sweeper classifications. Should these classifications be revised and they become subject to prevailing wage, it's going to result in an increase in the contract. Should council award the contract tonight, the work will continue uninterrupted. Staff recommends awarding the contract to Clean Street and to authorize the city manager to execute the attached agreement, and including a lot of the provisions that are listed in the council report. This concludes staff's report, and I'm available should you have any questions.
Any questions of staff?
I got one. The catch basins doesn't include the flood controls channels themselves, correct?
No, we don't touch the county's channels, but we do have some city-owned channels, and we have a separate contract for going down and cleaning those.
And just to clarify, this is the same company that we've been contracting with.
That's correct.
So we won't notice any changes in the neighborhood, time, schedules, probably be like clockwork, same thing.
They'll just keep growing.
And I'm sorry, it was a 7-year contract, this amount of money over 7 years, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second. Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Matters from council members, colleagues. Anything?
Oh, I have a couple. First thing, park survey is currently being done, as was previously mentioned. Please take the time to go to the city website, log into that park survey, and take 5 minutes to complete it and give your input as to what you'd like to see with our city parks. Tom had brought up some interesting information and looking through this, and I'm thankful because I didn't know that there was a parking district in the city of Garden Grove, and this opened my eyes. And I don't know if there needs to be some kind of education on this to our local code enforcement or police department, because I know we lost our traffic enforcement back in the 80s. So they probably forgot that they can enforce this if it's still valid. I'm assuming it is. I haven't seen anything that it's been rescinded. So maybe something to look into. And then lastly, running for city council, knocking on doors, shaking hands, kissing babies, doing all that. I heard the same story at least 10 times. And it always started out with, well, I had to go to do some city business and, this and that. And eventually they get to City Hall and the door's locked when they get there because they're closed every other Friday. And I got to thinking, the whole point of City Hall is to provide service to the community. And you just can't do that when you're closed every other Friday. So I would like to get it on the agenda for discussion. Maybe there's some way that we can adjust it where half the staff that deals with the public is there on one Friday and half is there on the other Friday, or some kind of way to resolve that. It seems like we're one of the few cities that's actually doing that, and it could be a very easy fix. I know I go in on Fridays even when they're closed, and I went in last Friday, and as I'm coming in to go to the elevators, there's people out there banging on the door like, let me in, it just seems kind of silly that we're closed on a Friday when the public needs to do business with the city. So I would like to get that on the agenda, just for discussion.
Okay, John?
Get no second on that?
Need a second?
I think I need a second if we're going to agendize something.
You need a majority vote if you want an action item. So if you want an agenda item for the council to take action, but if it's only for discussion, you don't need a second. We'll just put it on the agenda.
Oh,
But
perfect.
there won't be any action taken. It'll just be discussed.
Well, I'd like to take action if possible, so maybe we should get a second.
I think put it on the agenda for discussion, and then we'll come up with the action there and put it on the agenda after that for an action.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, just real quick, excited about the State of the City next week, next Wednesday. So that's going to be exciting. So if you're not able to go, it will be online after the event. I have the privilege of representing the city at going to Washington, D.C. on Sunday. I'll be there for 2 days, 2.5 days. It's going to be pretty intense, meeting a lot of our congressional people. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solve that closure of the government issue right now. But anyway, so I will be able to bring back a lot of good information on, because one of our biggest topics is homelessness, and that has to lead into the Section 8 stuff that we were talking about earlier tonight. So I'll bring back a lot of good information on what's going on there. It's with the Association of California Cities. And so I'll be going with a delegation of a lot of Orange County elected officials and actually community leaders. And we'll be meeting with federal staff. We'll be meeting with our congressional leaders. And it's a very intense schedule. So I'll be coming back with a report on a lot of good information from that. So thank you very much for sending me, and I'll be a good representative for the city of Garden Grove. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Tila.
Well, you guys took my line, so just to remind everyone to continue fill out the survey online for the park. We need all the input and all ideas, and this all matters. So the deadline is again February 8th. So we still have more than 2 weeks. So.
Thank you, Kim.
The only comment I have is to urge the public to apply to participate on one of the city commissions. I've found that every year we delay this item because we're not getting a huge pool of applicants. One of my biggest concerns is not only having a large pool of applicants to pick from, but making sure that we have some diversity in that process. So not just, I want to see different areas of the city being represented, different economic status, so geography, ethnic and racial backgrounds, just so that we're making sure that we're fairly representing our residents. We only are 7. Each commission, except for one, has 7 individuals as well, so that allows for more representation across the board. We have probably over 200,000 residents. We'll find out more after the census, but I want a variety of individuals, a variety of ages, so that everyone is being heard. So please, if you don't want to do it, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your children, and get more people to apply for those commissions.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a couple quick things, one of which is a vector control report. I thought I would just bring in the December report, and it kind of looks at the year-to-date, so it kind of goes over numbers from 2018. And so in the city of Garden Grove, we had 719 requests for service, mostly due to mosquitoes. So obviously this is an ongoing issue, and as I spoke at the last council meeting about, these mosquitoes are lasting well into the colder months and still biting people, so we need to take the continuing precautions of wearing long sleeves, using bug spray, making sure our screens are in good shape, and dumping and draining water on the property, especially after these heavy rains. And the other number that I found very interesting is Vector Control came to Garden Grove and treated 1,106 swimming pools. That means that most of these swimming pools were treated maybe because they were out of service, green, stagnant water, and so forth. So that is an issue with mosquito breeding. So if you're having a lot of bug bites, maybe peek over the fence and see who's got a swimming pool that isn't that isn't in operation. And there are mosquito fish that you can put in if you have a fountain and so forth. So there are options there. The other thing I wanted to mention was on the Martin Luther King holiday, my daughter and I went to the OC Food Bank and volunteered, and we packed a lot of boxes for the needy. It was a great opportunity to show my daughter the importance of service, and when you have free time, to use it wisely and give back. And so I encourage anyone that's looking for a volunteer opportunity or is a part of a service group that would like a volunteer opportunity, consider the OC Food Bank here in Garden Grove. And finally, I just want to wish my grandmother a very happy birthday. She turns 95 tomorrow, and she was born right here in Garden Grove, so it's a real honor to have someone so special in our family, and I love her very much.
Back to Kim, one more real quick.
Speaking of the OC Food Bank, if you know individuals who are affected by the government shutdown, they are giving us packages to those individuals. So please share that with the public or anyone that you may know that may be suffering due to the shutdown.
Okay. I would like to commend Mr. Rapper for your persistence and your, pursuing whatever you think is justice. I am really thankful that you educate us, and I think it's take a lot of your effort to dig out a lot of the past years resolution going back all the way to the 60s, and you present us tonight with about 14 signature on your neighborhood. Mr. Rapper have come here many times to speak out against his on this issue that people violating parkings. It create a lot of hardship for him and for his neighbors. And I was felt and saddened that we have not addressed his concern and his issue. So I would like to ask the city management office to talk to our police enforcement to understand what's going on. I'm hearing one side of the story, and I would like to go to the bottom of it, whether it is the misinformation or the officer may not realize that there is a the ordinance that limit parking there. We need to get to the bottom of it. I hate to see him coming here at the next city council and say that we didn't take any action. If we think that there's nothing we can do, we got to explain to him why we think there's nothing we can do. So I would like to ask the city management to take a look at this issue and figure out what's going on, and let us know or resolve it for Mr. Rapper, please.
Thank you. City Manager Costas.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we will certainly follow up on that request. Councilman Bowie, two quick things. Mr. Mayor, I don't want to steal your thunder. You might want to mention something about our upcoming Willowick study session that I know you're pretty involved in, coming up on the 29th. And the only other thing I'll say is go Rams.
Great. Yeah, I will comment on that. So excited to take one more step forward next week in a joint study session together between our city council and the Santa Ana City Council to discuss the future of Willowick. And this is just kind of the next step after we have had a series of town hall meetings back and forth across different cities with our various consultants, doing some visioning exercises with the public. So eager to hear just the cumulative results of feedback from residents, reports from our various consultants about kind of economic analysis of the site, and then also visioning processes we went through for the site. So it'll be an exciting next step. Omar, do we have need for a closed session tonight, and do we anticipate any reporting out thereafter?
Yeah, we do have two closed session items. I don't anticipate any reporting out, but the public is welcome to stay till we adjourn back.
Okay, thank you. We will adjourn City Council and go to closed session. Thank you.